Hello everybody and warm welcome to my channel, Tarot by Izabela. I hope you're all doing great and I'm very happy to see you here. Today's video will be a little bit different video from my other ones. But before I begin to talk about this video, first I want to thank you all, you wonderful viewers, for all of your support, for your comments, for your sharing, for your caring. And I'm sorry if I cannot answer to all of your questions, but I read them as much as I can, and I will try to answer as many as possible. If not in videos, maybe personal email. Well, about the video today, I will talk a little bit about vampirism and blood rituals. A little bit of history fact about this vampirism and what we can find today, and is it alive today. And I will also attach a lot of links below in the description, and I will refer to those links when I talk on different subjects, so you can always look things up and make your own mind, make up your own mind about what I'm talking about. And what is also important, whatever I say here, it's not meant to attacking any religious groups. It's just facts. And I'm sorry if anyone get offended, that is not my meaning. But still, it's quite important information and it could be useful to many. Well, vampirism and blood rituals. We have all seen and heard a lot of horror movies about vampires and blood-sucking undead spirits and blood rituals. We hear that a lot also lately on different social media. I will not cover all of that is talked about on different social platforms, since this is a very sensitive platform and certain words I will not be able to pronounce here or say here. But the word that is highlighted in many things that I will talk about begins with an A and ends with chrome. And those who know what I'm talking about, you know. And this word is a trigger word, and I will not say it out loudly. And if I mention it, I will just say the red substance. And you will know what I'm talking about. Well, I have some notes here, so sorry if I look down. And this is just because I don't want to miss anything of what is important to say. But we will begin with a certain story about a very famous countess, Countess Elizabeth Bathory. And for all your Hungarian people, because she was an Hungarian countess, I'm sorry if I did not pronounce that name correctly, but Elizabeth Bathory. And she lived for more than 500 years ago. And she was a very rich and very influential woman in Hungary. Why she's associated to vampirism? And there are a lot of rumors about her. What those rumors, if those rumors are true or not, well, nobody can say 100%. But she's very much connected to the use of chrome, the red substance. How? Well, the story about this countess goes back far away, more than 500 years. And I will begin not in the political area, because it's a lot of politics, religious wars and so on, but what is she's most famous for. And the rumor of being very bloodthirsty. And this countess, she was a little bit obsessed with beauty, and she wanted to stay young and look as good as possible. And in those days, the elite, the royals, the high position people were always more worth than the normal people. The normal people were just servants, and they were the true people, the pure blood. Anyway, during one day when her servant girl, a young girl, was brushing her hair, this young girl by accident pulled her hair a little bit, and the countess got extremely mad and like slapped that poor girl, servant girl, in the face, and she began to bleed. And some of that blood came upon the skin of the countess. And she noticed that, oh my God, this blood, my skin looked much younger, much fresher after that blood. And she began to think, oh, yeah, okay, maybe blood from young girls could make me look younger. And then is when the nightmare began. What happened during the following years, that almost all the servant girls that was called into service at this countess court, they began to disappear, and nobody knew where they had gone, one after another. And it ended like the villages around didn't have more girls to send to the countess, and the parents of these girls were getting worried. Where are our daughters? What's happening at the castle? Why are they disappearing? And when she ran out of girls, because one after one was in her service and they disappeared, then she got the idea that maybe I'm gonna invite girls from higher class families and like teach them court life, how to behave like a lady and so on. So the rich families in high position began to send the girls to the countess, and they also began to disappear. And when you have influence in those days, medieval times, then they started some investigations about their missing daughters. But only the investigation started when the high-class girls disappeared, not when hundreds of peasant girls disappeared. What they found at the castle was dead bodies of young girls in the dungeons that was tortured to death, that was drained of blood under the most horrific situations. Some I think they found some girl alive, but mostly they were all dead bodies. And during this investigation, while they interrogate a couple of people on the torture, so you never know if that was true or not. But anyway, the personal servants to the countess, those minions of hers that make the bidding, that was looking for the girls, torturing them, draining them of blood, they like confessed. And they said that they were torturing these girls, they were draining them of blood, and the countess drank the blood. She was bathing in the blood of these young girls, and that's what they were used for. And she became a red substance junkie. And those who know about this red substance, it's taken out of young people, little ones, under extreme fear and terror that is caused to the little ones, and that make the blood filled with adrenaline, and that makes that red substance. And thinking about it, this countess, well, everybody was scared of her, a lot of respect, a lot of money, And when you're tortured, when you're scared, well, what happens? Adrenaline in the blood. So she used it to keep herself young. Well, all these horrific crimes were discovered, and being a high position society, almost royal, she had immunity, so they could not, they could arrest her because she was arrested, but they could not give her any death sentence. So they gave her house arrest in the castle. She was not allowed to leave the castle, and she stayed in the castle until her death. She lived normal life, except that she could not leave the castle. But the supply of young girls was stopped. And that is the story of Countess Bathory, the Blood Countess, Vampire Countess. So she was in a way a big red substance junkie. Well, what is it about the power of the blood and vampirism? The blood in itself has been seen as a holy substance in all cultures, all over the world, for thousands and thousands of years. I will not go into detail about the blood because then the video would be many hours. But let's just take some big portions about the blood. And in a magical way, for those who make like rituals, especially evil rituals, they need preferably the substance of their victim, some blood, hair or something, but that is mainly due to the unique DNA structure in the blood. And then they can direct the evil wishes directly to energetically to that DNA that is in the blood, you can say. And blood possesses a lot of life force, life power, and it has been sacrificed to gods, to this. Even in the Bible you see a lot of blood sacrifice, mainly animals, but still blood is where the life force resides, according to many scriptures. So blood is very holy in one way. What more? Yeah. And the stories of vampires have circulated a long time, long before Bram Stoker wrote the famous novel Dracula. And that was based on many myths in Slavic countries about the walking undead. But if one think about it, all the myths about vampires, mainly the vampires are some kind of aristocrats, some kind of royalty. And they have sold their souls, or they don't really possess a soul, or they had been infected in some way by another vampire, and that makes you also lose your soul. And they need the blood, the life force from some living being to keep themselves alive. Since they don't have any soul, they need that blood, that life force. And when they don't get it, they deteriorate. They get old and wrinkly and mummy-like. And mainly they prefer young, healthy people where they can drink the blood from to keep themselves young. There we have connecting the dots here. I just want to say the vampire is mainly aristocrat with a lot of influence. They can manipulate, they can shapeshift, they can do a lot of strange things. And they need the blood because they don't have life force of their own. And the best blood for a vampire is from a young innocent victim. And when a young innocent victim are drained of blood, they many times are aware of it, and it's done under terror, pain and horror, which means that their blood will be filled with adrenaline while the vampire is drinking it. See the connection? So is it a myth, or is it something that is really happening? Many of you have probably seen documentaries of modern goth vampires wannabes that with fake fangs, and they like bite each other and make strange thing. But that is just show of vampires. That is not the real vampires. The real vampires never show themselves. They are hidden. And there are vampire communities that claim that they are better vampires because they don't use blood. They feed on life energy. And there are in those communities really directions how you go about to feed the life energy of an innocent victim. And specific in those better vampires, as they call themselves, they prefer to go to places where there are a lot of young children. Because if they drain some life force of those young children, the victims are not so hurt because they are young and they can create new life force. But if they drain too much life force from an older person, then it's not so good. Again, the little ones are the victims for the vampires. And there are directions in those covens, you can say, that they tell how you drain the life force from victims so they don't get ill. The vampires, because if you drain a life force from a victim that is ill, you can also drain that illness to yourself, and how to protect them. So yes, some kind of modern vampires exist. But also, on the other side, there do exist those bloodthirsty ones that feed on blood from tortured victims. Now I want to talk a little about history behind it all. And if you look back in history, there is a book that is called the Book of Jasher. And it's said that this is one of the last books of the Old Testament. And some books in the Old Testament refer to the Book of Jasher. So there was a book that the Old Testament had already, like a scripture that they're referring to before the Old Testament was written. And nobody knows really if the Book of Jasher is totally lost, or if it's because they circulate. You can buy a copy of the Book of Jasher, but some people say this Book of Jasher is not the real Book of Jasher, and that is not that old as the Old Testament. But still they recognize it's been many hundreds years of old. And I want to read to you a couple of verses from this Book of Jasher. And just to show you that the idea that blood, especially from young people, can cure and heal. And that kings, the aristocrats, were using the blood. So I'm going to read to you from the Book of Jasher. But the Book of Jasher that is found today, I cannot guarantee or say for certain that is the original book, but it is the book you can find if you Google it. You can buy it online or on Amazon. The Book of Jasher, chapter 76, verses 28 to 32. And I'm gonna read to you. And when the Lord had inflicted the plague upon Pharaoh, king of Egypt, he asked his wise men and sorcerers to cure him. And his wise men and sorcerers said unto him, that if the blood of little children were put into the wounds, he would be healed. A daughter. And Pharaoh hearkened to them and sent his ministers to Goshen, to the children of Israel, to take their little children. And Pharaoh's ministers went and took the infants of the children of Israel from the bosoms of their mothers by force, and they brought them to the Pharaoh daily, a child each day, and the physicians killed them and applied them to the plague. Thus did they all the days. And the number of the children which Pharaoh slew was 375. So going back to those days, there was already some kind of, you can say, evil magical practice using this blood to heal and to make people younger. And here again, it's always the aristocrats, always the elite that take use of this practice and causing pain and suffering to the little ones. That was one chapter. And one can wonder, where did I learn that from? Because if they knew about this practice, somebody had to tell them. So this goes probably far, far, far back, until the elite was created on planet Earth. Elite created or came to planet Earth and needed the blood for keeping themselves young, the soulless one. Because you really cannot have any soul or any heart in a spiritual world if you enjoy in a practice that is so horrific, like slaying little ones and using the blood for your own selfish needs. I also want to mention, just to connecting the dots, we have here, just a moment, so I don't miss it. Yeah. And during medieval times, early medieval times, there were a lot of anti-Semitic propaganda from the church against the Jews. And there were a lot of rumors spreading from that days that the Jews were kidnapping Christian children and torturing those children and using the children in different strange religious rituals. And this is the picture I'm showing you here from one of those rumors. And it was mainly boys, and they were tortured to death, while the blood again. Young children, torture. But it was And this rumor was sent out from aristocrats again. And how can someone invent a rumor like that if they did not hear it, or maybe did it themselves? Because we know many times, especially now, when the mainstream or anything, whatever they say, they often say that that person is evil, that, but it's the contrary. They are saying what they are doing, but projecting them on others. So one can wonder, it's always, you hear that from someone, and they hear it from someone, and it was always in those aristocrat circles where the rumors or where the practice of this kind of blood-consuming rituals were happening. And one can wonder, but that is only in the past. We don't do things like that. Are you sure? Because aristocrats are still here, and I'm not accusing any aristocrats of doing this kind of horrific practice, but is there any evidence that they have stopped? Because there is evidence that things like that have happened, and since it gave effect, why should they stop it? Maybe they just went underground. I cannot say for sure because I don't have the clear evidence, but we can see a lot of references to this kind of practice of using the red substance extracted from little ones for your own pleasure or for prolonging the life of this soulless entity. And I have put several links below, and I want to talk a little bit about those links that I have put below in the description. I will just need to put my glasses on first. And I have the link here. Begin with a quite innocent link. And many of you who have children, or still are children in the heart, have seen the Disney movie. They will have Disney. And we know what Disney, the reputation of Disney. They made a movie called Monster Inc. And also in that movie, who are the victims? Well, they are the little children. And what do the monsters, the evil ones, without soul, they need to scare the children. The more frightened a child is, the more energy they can extract from that child. In Monster Inc. So here we have another little bit red flag. So that myth, if it's a myth, you can decide yourself. It's still out there, and they even put it in a movie for children, how they go about. And until it came one monster that didn't want to scare the children anymore, and well, the movie ended that it extracted energy from laughter instead of fear. But still, it's a kind of vampirism, taking the life force from the young person to make your society or your kind live. Then we have another child movie, and that is one that was released not so long ago, and it's called Hocus Pocus 2. I don't have any scenes. I will not show any scenes in this video because I don't really know how this copyright thing works, and I will not risk to get any lawsuit on me if I show a scene from a famous movie. Instead, I have the links below. Anyway, from this Hocus Pocus film, there is in the beginning, when the three witches are entering a supermarket, and they're like want to sacrifice those two girls in that supermarket, and they are heading for the section of beauty products, and those witches are talking in that movie about the soul of young children. They needed to keep them alive. One of the witches even took a face mask, put it on her face, and was talking about the face of a baby, and then she ate it. And those of you who know have heard about this thing about taking the face off and put it on yourself as a face mask and then eat it to get more power. Yeah, I will not go so deep into that, but this also circulates on. And who does it? Who know, you know. And as I said, I cannot give too much details here in the video, but it's more like a historical fact video. Another of those links I would like to talk about is a short Simpson clip. We all know Simpson are very special. They can predict a lot. And the evil ones that are ruling the world, somehow they want to show what they are up to before they do it, or also show what they are doing. And if people don't react to it, then it's okay in a karmatic sense of way, because we told you and you let us continue. So then it's okay, we will not be punished in a spiritual karmatic way. Anyway, in this young Simpson young boy, and there is this old, very rich elite, who in that short scene is drinking the blood of a young boy to keep himself young. Simpson. Then we also have a South Park clip, and it's quite, for those who are sensitive, maybe you should not watch it, but it's still South Park, and it also talks about this red substance, who are involved and what they are used to, and so on. And we go to another Hollywood movie, Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. And there's also talking about this red substance, how it's taken out and who does it, and what it is good for, if you can call it good. Then I also have a link in below about transfusions from young people. So there is a company that has opened up, and they are making publicity that they are curing a lot of diseases by transfusions with blood from young people. Again, we have the young people, and they're frankly open about it. And you see again, it all comes back. The blood from young people cures and heals and gives longevity and so on. So it's not just a myth in the past. It's up there, up in your face. And we also have another quite famous artist called Marina Abramovic. And those, many of you have probably seen also like very disturbing art with a lot of blood drinking, bathing in blood, cannibalism, and so on. And so yes, we have that, maybe a little bit hidden, but still open, in the open, in modern days. So the thing about vampirism and the blood drinking, and especially with young people, are not something in the past. And another very, very, very disturbing movie, but still it says a lot, because remember, the evil ones, many times they talk through the movies and what they put out to the public, to say what is going on behind the scenes. And in this movie, Dr. Sleep, there is a group of, you can call them vampires, who travel around and they kidnap young children, torture them to death, and while the child is dying, they suck up the life force. They can even save it in jars, and they use it to keep themselves young, but only on suffering and pain from other ones. So yeah, this theme is quite vivid. It's not something just back in the old days. We still see it, and it's shown in many movies. And I think one should be open to that this could exist. Be a little bit aware, and because you can see the signs, you can almost feel it, that is something that is not right. And we live in very special times, and this practice to extracting the red substance from suffering young victims is about to get exposed publicly. And I really, 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 really pray for that this will be exposed sooner than later, and the people, not people because they are soulless creatures of some kind, can be eliminated forever, so our children and young people can have a really good future without this threat that is hanging around above them. Well, that was a little bit information about the vampirism. And as I said, connecting the dot, the red line between all of these stories are life force is in the blood. The possibility of curing diseases, keep one young and healthy, is in the blood, according to those forces. And to do so, you have to torture, you have to inflict pain on the victim, a young victim, to get as good product as possible. But that is the vampiric, the parasitic way. There are other ways to keep yourself young and healthy, not through this practice, and it is by downloading love and light and eat well and sleep well and live well, that can also give you longevity and make you feel and look better. But since those people are not creatures are not able to do that, they are soulless, they are doomed, soulless entities, because creature is even a disgrace to call them entities, and they cannot do it, so they need to feed on those who have a soul, and those who have the purest soul are always the little ones. This the purest, the diamonds of them all. Well, that was a little bit, yeah, talk maybe too much, but still a little bit about vampirism and connecting the dots. And remember, who are the vampires? It's always the elite, those in high, not almost always, in high position, taking advantage of people in low position that is not worth so much more than cattle for them. As livestock, they can feed on. And we are not livestock. We are souls, beautiful souls, and we will not allow those horrific evil entities to feed more upon us. And there will be time they will also meet their end, and hopefully it will come sooner than later. Well guys, that was my little video about vampirism and connecting the dots. And for all of you that have been watching, I want to say again, if I mentioned something that could offend you, it was not meant for any religious group. It's just historical facts. You can look it up. The links are there. And it's easy to blame others for what you're doing, especially if someone is a little bit different, to cause fear, and you can get away with your crimes. Well, and to sum it up, and want to thank you all so much for watching. And if you have liked what you have seen and heard, please don't forget to press like button, share button and subscription button. And to all of you, wish you all the best, take care, be alert, and the truth will always win. Hopefully we're gonna see each other soon again. Bye bye.